Voice of Life Radio now presents CCN Magazine, featuring church and community news.
Here is the CCN Magazine for 16th January 2016. First, the headlines. Massac Christian Union Church ends 1 week of prayer. Missionary team to visit Kulibistri and Kaliho Gospel Mission churches. Kulibistri Baptist Church reports successful New Year's rally. New pastor for Faith Harvest Tabernacle in Tebow. Dominica observes the Drug Awareness Month. Police call on public assistance. Barbados reports suspected cases of Zika and H1N1 viruses. U.S. Army General concerned about potential ISIS attack in the Caribbean. Of human interest, DJ Nicholas features with Detrick Haddon on BET. Now for the details. Last week, saints at the Massac Christian Union Church met for 1 hour each evening for special prayer meetings as the new year began. During the course of the week and as part of the church calendar of events for 2016, prayers were offered on behalf of the nation and the church.
We thank you, O God, for the move of God in the nation. We thank you that we have all seen it, we have all wept, we have all heard, and we have all realized that we need to go back, O God, to the place of our birth. We need to all go back to the cross. We need to all go back to the throne room. We need to all go back to the upper room and receive the anointing of God. We give you praise, my God. Lord, we give you praise for restoring us. Lord, we give you praise for bringing back us to
Pastor Lennox Timothy gives this account.
As the year started, God gave the vision for us to have a series of prayer and fasting. We began the year 1 hour prayer in the evening, and we thank God for the attendance. And as well, we continued the second week to have early morning prayer starting 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. And my God, this has been overwhelming. The attendance have been tremendous. You would think that we were having Sunday morning services. There were no days that we had no less than 20 persons present for these prayer sessions. And so we are truly grateful to God for the mighty move of His Holy Spirit. Now, the third week, we are entering into a 7-day prayer and fast, commencing Sunday, God willing, and we are ending the following Saturday. Now, each of the days we have groups of 7, and we're looking forward to God doing a tremendous work in the community of Massac, Jimit, Maho, Czech Hall, Citronier, Lubia. We just believe in God for mighty revival for the land. Each group have been given specific prayer requests to be prayed for, and so a coordinator has been appointed for that particular group. From Monday to Saturday, each group will fast for a day. We begin 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Lennox Timothy of Massac Christian Union Church. A team of 9 missionaries arrives here on the 17th of January to provide hands-on assistance to the Kaliho and Kulibistri Gospel Mission churches next week. They are visiting from the First Corinth Baptist Church in Texas, USA, where several of its members are Dominicans. The team is being led by Pastor Bruce Larson. Their main goal is to refurbish and construct homes as well as engage students in evangelism.
They contacted us through one of our members who is now residing over there, Fernando Parla George and Pastor George, who attends the church. They heard of the incident, Tropical Storm Erica, and they have been moved since then to provide assistance. They did so materially through donations made for the government of Dominica. They, however, felt led to do further practically, and so they have been arranging to send a team of church members down here to engage in reconstruction work, and both physical and spiritual, Kulibistri and Kolio in particular. And so they will be engaging also proclaiming the gospel through a few open-air services in these areas, Salisbury, Kolio, Kulibistri and Dubla. Briefly in a few activities which they hope will be motivational.
Cyprian George, pastor of the Kenfield Gospel Mission Church, tells us more. Pastor Philip Prosper of Culebesri Baptist Church has reported that the turnout at the annual New Year's rally of the Baptist churches held on the 10th of January exceeded all expectations.
The morning session began about 10:30, singing, testifying, and then we had a gentleman from Kalibishi who spoke about how we should treat our pastors, and basically he was saying that after a pastor labor for so long, sometimes 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, they should not go empty-handed, but the church should put some things in place so that they get a little gratuity and in some instances even a pension. So that was well received by the pastors and some of the people. Then we had the afternoon session preaching, which was done by a young man, Calvin Christopher, which is my assistant pastor, and he had a very nice word which blessed everybody, expounded the word so well that it captivated a lot of us, even though some of our senior pastors were intrigued by the way he expounded the word. So it was a tremendous blessing. So we had a good time. I would say we had somewhere around 300-400 people there.
The highlight of the day's event was a sermon entitled Building Our Lives on Things Eternal, delivered by a young preacher, Calvin Christopher of First Olivet Baptist Church in Portsmouth. Faith Harvest Tabernacle in Tebow now has a new pastor. Randy Fabian, a medical doctor by profession who hails from the community of Tebow, was officially installed on the 20th of December 2015 during a ceremony at the tabernacle. Pastor John Robin, temporary overseer of Faith Harvest Ministry, firmly charged the believers to support him in his new calling. Pastor Fabian told the CCN of this new calling on his life.
I was called to the ministry by God himself. Towards the end of September, I was on my vehicle driving home, and then I got an audible voice call from God to be the pastor of the ministry. The pastor of the ministry before me was Pastor James Pante, also the proprietor of Paradise Cafe in Portsmouth. But then he had to release himself of the duties because of circumstances that he could not control. So from that moment, he was holding on until a pastor would have come in. But then I heard a voice while I was on my vehicle one evening saying that I will be the pastor of the ministry. A position I really had no interest in at all for my entire life as a Christian. But then on that day, the voice was so clear and there was so much peace accompanying that voice that it was impossible for me to refuse. In spite of all the things that I thought of, in spite of the fact that I'm a medical doctor by profession and the time is not usually on my side for full ministry, that peace caused me to eliminate all those negatives, all the things that would go against my being the pastor. The peace that I felt inside of me caused them to be erased. I always tell people, when you hear the voice of God, it's impossible to say no. Just like when Moses and how Abraham operated, when they heard the voice of God, in spite of the person that they were, in spite of the circumstances that were surrounding them, it was impossible to go against it. Inside of me, there was nothing that was doubting God's ability to perform through me in the village of Tebow.
Faith Harvest Ministry was initially run under the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies, but became an independent assembly 4 years ago. It is the only evangelical ministry in the village. Community Stories. In order to create greater awareness about the effects of illegal drugs, the National Drug Prevention Unit in Dominica is observing Drug Awareness Month. This year's theme is Let's Develop Our Lives, Community and Identity Without Drugs. Activities in observance included a church service at the Roseau Seventh-day Adventist Church on the 2nd of January and an address by Health Minister Dr. Kenneth Darrow on Tuesday, 5th January. According to Jacinta Banis, director of the National Drug Abuse Prevention Unit, other activities include visits to various communities as well as exhibitions at the public libraries of Marigot, Roseau, and La Plaine. Ms. Banis cited the addition of a Peer Helpers Award ceremony, which is a new feature for the month. Peer Helpers is a program which was launched 3 years ago to train students in helping their peers and other students in understanding drugs. The local police are seeking assistance from the public to help in the apprehension of 2 attackers who inflicted serious injuries on Simon Fountain and Rhoda James of Loubier last weekend. Police PRO Sergeant Pelham John Baptist said it is alleged that about 2:15 a.m., 2 individuals entered the upper floor of a 2-floor building where James resides. The 2 were confronted and inflicted with numerous wounds. However, it is reported that they are progressively recovering. Mr. John Baptist said anyone with information on the incident should contact the Criminal Investigation Department at 266-5164, 266-5165, 266-5119, or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-8477. Meanwhile, Mr. John Baptist has stated that the body of a male figure found on water 1 mile away from Roseau earlier this week has been identified as that of 60 years old Alphonsus John Feen of Casabros. The police department extends deepest condolences to the family and friends of Alphonsus John Feen of Casabros. From the region, last week, CCN magazine reported that Martinique had become the latest to report confirmed cases of Zika virus. Today, unfortunately, we report that health authorities in Barbados have noted 8 suspected cases of the HINI and Zika viruses. Minister of Health John Boyce said earlier this week, samples have been sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency for confirmatory testing. He has cautioned the public to use simple measures to prevent mosquito breeding around their homes, business places, and communities rather than panic. The Ministry of Health has informed the public to search for and remove breeding places for mosquitoes around their homes at least once a week. Here in Dominica, Dr. David Johnson, Chief Medical Officer, has encouraged the public to protect themselves by taking all necessary actions to minimize the risk of being bitten by the infected Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. This is particularly important for women who may be in their first trimester of pregnancy.
There's another major complication which at least was identified in Brazil in particular, in babies, that some babies are born with poor development of the head. The head are normally smaller than others. It is referred to as microcephaly. Given all of these situations, the Ministry of Health and Environment has been in very close communication, I must say, with Pan American Health Organization and CAFA in monitoring the situation in the region. And the ministry is in full alert and has put a plan of action for the prevention and control of Zika virus. Our plan of action focuses on a number of areas in terms of the surveillance and laboratory detection of Zika virus. The plan is aimed at what we refer to as source reduction in number of mosquitoes, or the reducing mosquito population in Dominica. The plan of action also focuses on the clinical management of persons presenting with Zika virus. And very importantly, I should say, our plan of action involves an aggressive public education campaign to empower the general public to take the necessary measures to protect themselves against the bite of mosquitoes, particularly Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, as well as the reduction in the number of breeding sites of those mosquitoes.
Dr. David Johnson. A top army general in the United States is worried that a few Islamic extremists in the Caribbean could carry out terrorist acts in the region. According to Commander of U.S. Southern Command Southcom, General John Kelly, last year, about 100 Islamic extremists left the Caribbean region to join Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS fighters, in the Middle East, some of whom were killed, and that figure has already risen to about 150 this year. His worry is, however, less about the impact those Caribbean nationals have on the ISIS fight overseas and more about what they can do in their homelands. CCN reminds all to pray for Christians and others being affected by ISIS. Let us continue to thank God for his banner of protection over us and petition him to fight on our behalf that the enemy will not come nigh our dwelling and every evil plot be rendered null. Finally, of human interest, DJ Nicholas, a Jamaican gospel artist, traveled to Los Angeles, California to feature in a live performance with Detrick Haddon, American gospel singer, at BET Annual Celebration of Gospel. This activity will set the pace for the release of his next album in 2016, which will feature Detrick Haddon along with other international ministers. The show is to be aired on BET on January 29, 2016. DJ Nicholas, whose name is familiar to Dominican artists, is a winner of several awards, including the Artist of the Year Award and the New Artist of the Year Award at the Major Awards 2006 in Kingston, Jamaica. He was also nominated by the 2017 Jamaica Observer Awards for Gospel Artist of the Year. DJ Nicholas has ministered in Canada, USA, South America, London, and several Caribbean islands, including Dominica, in 2009. DJ Nicholas hosted his first event in Jamaica with DJ Moses called Exodus 2007 Movement of God's People. That's CCN for this weekend. Tune in again next week for more on the magazine.
You've been listening to The Voice of Life's CCN magazine,